All right, there he is, ready to go, locked and loaded. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. Getting a week away from free agency, actually within a week. So now things really heat up. We have this week kind of in between the combine when all this news and all these rumors are starting to come out. And then it's sort of the build up to it. The franchise tag deadline today at 4 p.m. So we already got some news on the Dolphins that came out yesterday. So some clarity there and find out some more around the league.
Got some news now, but we gave that news a couple months ago.
Hear ye, hear ye! Ladies and gentlemen, far and wide, the Sports Perdomo has a prediction for all.
Months ago, we gave you that prediction. We told you there'd be no tag, there'll be no long-term contract, and
the Sports Perdomo has spoken.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, it's just one of those things. So, it's it happens. But overall, what are your thoughts on not getting tagged and getting on the open market?
Big O, you haven't played those graphics while I've been on with you. So that threw me for a loop there.
I don't do the predictions in your segments. I do it, talk segments.
I love it though. I love it.
But
right. Well, you're not in the clear yet. All right, we still haven't seen him actually go to another team. The Dolphins still have another week where they are the team that can exclusively negotiate with him legally, and then Monday of next week at noon, that's when he can start legally negotiating with other teams around the league. So let's not count your winnings yet. I know you felt that the one way the Dolphins could maybe keep him, especially once you got the news that the salary cap came in $12 million more than everyone anticipated. Okay, maybe franchise tag at that point. But still, I always kind of also felt that in the short term, that a long-term extension could be beneficial because you do lower the salary cap hit for this 2024 season. And then after that, you're going to be in salary cap hell regardless. So if you're just tacking on all the contracts later and then you do like the Rams after their Super Bowl after that, if you're really going all in on 2024, which it seems to be that win now window, then maybe you do that anyway, which after that, you're also going to be paying Tua. So then you got your big quarterback spending going on. So
you're playing all.
Holding out hope for my.
I want your opinion. I don't care about all. I know what this, that, and keeping him there and that. What's your opinion on it? Because to me, it's the right move. That's all I know. This is the right move. He doesn't get big sacks in big games. He's not worth $25 million. I'm letting him go, dude. I'm sorry. And I actually think the same people complaining about Wilkins will be the same people that will complain about the Dolphins re-signing him to a long-term contract and giving him $25 million plus. And when he ends up with 5 sacks at the end of the year, they're going to be ripping the Dolphins for giving the guy $25 million and he gets 5 sacks a year. So for me, I don't think Wilkins is worth it. And I don't think he's going to live up to the contract that's coming up. So I think the Dolphins made the right move. That's the question I have for you. Did the Dolphins make the right move or the wrong move?
Well, the only thing about it is that you don't like to give up foundational pieces that you've collected through the draft. He was your 2019 first-round pick. You developed him over 5 years, and you still don't have a playoff win under him. So he was sort of this foundational piece of a rebuild that then you started getting to some consistent winning seasons, consistent postseason appearance seasons, still don't have an advance in the playoffs, and you kind of wanted to see that through. So that's not what you like as far as a team-building aspect is your own homegrown talent that you've developed over 5 years to then let him go eventually in free agency. But at the end of the day, the Dolphins also have a guy named Zach Sealer who they're getting at about half of the price, and that's after his contract extension that was agreed to last training camp after Christian Wilkins.
Slightly better production and slightly better.
Right, and he actually had, despite Christian Wilkins' career high in sacks, Zach Sealer, who also had a career high in sacks, had one more than him. So Yeah, I mean they're that salt and pepper duo. They complement each other. You want both of them sort of so that they can feed off each other. So maybe one might not be as good without the other. But
you ain't answering the question.
Yeah. I'm getting there. So at the end of the day, when I compare it to what you're getting out of Zach Sealer at the 11.9, and don't have the number off the top of my head, figure a cap number that he's going to be hit for 2024, which is after he has already signed. And then you're talking about 24 million, 25 million for Christian Wilkins. If you tag him, it's 22.1 million for 1 year, and then you might lose him the next. Then, yeah, I mean, you're talking about half the price for Christian Wilkins is not double the player that Zach Sealer is. So it's a much better bargain, much more bang for the buck with Zach Sealer. And then comparatively, it's a high price to pay for Christian Wilkins. So it is a prudent decision from the Dolphins front office not to spend that much on a guy who's already 28 going into his first free agency dealings.
Yeah, although tackles tend to last a little longer. So 28 is really not old for tackles can play into their 30s. Shit, sometimes they reach almost 40 sometimes when they're still, somewhat effective. I mean, we had Keith Traylor here, and he was close to 40 years old. Dude. I mean, he was still productive,
Just
overall.
a matter of free agency hitting at that age where he came into the league at 23, and then as a first-round pick, getting the fifth-year option. So 5 years later, 28 is still old for hitting your first free agency in the NFL.
Yeah. So what do you hear about all the other guys, the Rob Hunts of the world, the Connor Williams of the world, everybody else that's kind of up for a contract? What are you hearing? Is there any talks, any progress? What's going on?
Yeah, I know from Robert Hunt's camp, they're just taking it one day at a time. So right now he's just chilling, kind of seeing what develops going into next week. And but I mean, I've always kind of felt that between Wilkins and Hunt, you got to get one, if not the other. So if you're not spending on Wilkins, I think Robert Hunt becomes a priority right now for this Dolphins team that right now has all three of its starting interior offensive linemen in free agency. Just as recently as last week, although we all anticipate Teron Armstead will be back, Chris Greer didn't want to, and neither did Mike McDaniel, want to give a definitive answer on his status returning as he contemplates retirement. So I know we're waiting on that definitive answer. The Dolphins need to hear that before free agency starts. So there's a lot of questions on this offensive line. So I feel Robert Hunt becomes an extreme priority. Connor Williams is going to be on the back burner. He's rehabbing, focusing on that. And then, maybe if that goes into June, that June 1 money, post-June 1 money that comes in from Xavier Howard could come through in that. Andrew Van Ginkel, I feel, certainly is a top priority. So I think the Dolphins need to do what they have to do to bring him back. And I think just I see him as a family man who is he's got his wife here. He's got, and we saw some of this on Hard Knocks this past season, got his kids here. I think he doesn't want to move. I know he tested free agency a little bit last offseason, talked to the Patriots, talked to the Raiders, ultimately came back. And with Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb coming back from those serious rehabs, I feel like just from both sides, it would be really beneficial to have Andrew Van Ginkel there. So as far as like a top few guys, that's what I'm saying.
The one thing I did think that could happen is a tag of Robert Hunt. So that way they kind of can secure him and then work on the deal one way or the other, because the tag of Robert Hunt isn't a crippling tag. A guard tag is not a crippling tag. So that's one that you can at least still have the maneuverability and still do your work. Whereas a Christian Wilkins tag or a Tua tag or, a pass rusher tag, that's going to be a really expensive tag. The guard one is kind of manageable. Do you hear any of that? Could there be a tag before the deadline here on Rob Hunt?
Yeah, I've thought about it. Not hearing anything per se as far as whether they'll do it. These things, organizations try to keep tight to the belt until it does happen. Like even, I think we were seeing some Brian Burns will hit free agency reports, and then all of a sudden, he's getting tagged. So a lot of this is kept tight to the vest. So, but I've kind of I would hear that from you on this program, and then started wondering about that as a possibility too. So I give it an outside shot. if the Dolphins want to go that route. So, and then if you tag him, then you could still try to work out a long-term deal with him. A guy who's been a very reliable right guard, hasn't been injured much, really just only had an injury for the first time this past year with that hamstring deal. So pretty much very reliable, and then solid in all aspects of his position.
Yeah, I'm a Rob Hunt fan, and I think that's, to me, I think that's the guy you tag to kind of control things, because the Connor stuff will take time. So then this kind of gives you a little bit of more focus on getting the Tua deal done, which, again, we got people freaking out that Wilkins is gone, and then we got people freaking out that Tua is going to get a contract. By the way, I thought I was the only media member that thought about it this way, and I was on the Sun Sentinel thing with Perk, and Perk has the same theory I do, that the problem is not Tua. The problem is Mike McDaniel and his scatterbrained self, that he doesn't, he's not really truly prepared on game day to do the things that he needs to do and put his team in position, including Tua, to be successful. So I was pleasantly surprised by that, because I thought maybe I was the only nutbag that was thinking that.
Now, let's also say Mike McDaniel has gotten much more out of Tua these past 2 seasons than what was previously there in the previous OCs and Brian Flores regime. So
because that's because he has a sense of play design. He knows offense.
Yeah.
But he still doesn't have what's called structure. He still doesn't have any discipline. That's the fact that you know how to run an offense. Well, that's fine, dude. You can call plays and you can play design and all that. Now, do you know how to do it in the structure of a game strategically? Are you aware of what's going on in the game? We're late in the game. Let's pull these guys out. They're injured. Hey, we got to win this challenge. Do I have the right information? I got to get the play in on time. I'm giving up on the run. It's his problems are not his intelligence. It's his organization. It's his discipline. It's the things that really are affecting this team on a consistent basis. His intelligence is there. His creativeness is proven. You know what I'm saying? He knows offense. But it's kind of like, okay, you're 18 years old. I would hope it happened a little earlier for some of you. But let's say you're 18 years old and you've never gotten laid in your life. Okay? And all of a sudden, you're somewhere and this gorgeous woman who's in her 30s is interested in you. And, you're going for it, but you are completely nervous and you don't know what the hell you're doing. And she's running circles all over you. See, so you have the beauty, but you don't know how to really manage the motorcycle. You know what I'm saying? And that's
that was me early in college. Yeah.
Oh, and so right now, Mike McDaniel is that guy that hasn't gotten laid, and he's like trying to get laid for the first time, and he has no idea how to, play the game. And that's his problem. You've given him, a motorcycle that can do 200, but he doesn't know how to really handle all that horsepower. You know what I'm saying? And that's Mike McDaniel's problem. And I was very happy that Chris Perkins sees the same thing I do, because that's what's really, besides the bad luck with the injuries, that's really what's stopping the Dolphins from advancing.
We've gone off the rails this segment. I heard it. Chris Perkins wasn't making that comparison. I love it
because I saw this morning that there's going to be a little bit more Furones on the show.
Oh, yes.
And so it reminded me, and I got to talk to David about this, because I was pleasantly surprised that Perk feels the same way I do, because I don't think I've seen anybody kind of say the same thing I do, that the real problem is Mike McDaniel, that he's got to get his shit straight. It's not about Tua, actually. It's not really about the offense. It's not even about the defense. It's about him on offense.
Yeah, I loved it when I saw that you were going to be on the show. So that was cool. I've been meaning to follow up with you on how that went. But I hear you on Mike McDaniel, and I mean, he is an offensive guru. He knows how to play design, the call plays sometimes in in the greater scheme of the game plan, could see some improvement there. I think he would be his own harshest critic on that as well. I think he's aware of that, and when he identifies problems, he tries to attack them. Now, some of this stuff has come back over a second year. Same with other game management things like the whole challenging system that they have in place. Obviously, didn't work in year 2 either, as he had the same challenge record. So still needs to see improvement on that. But I think, yeah, he's got to take an introspective look on certain areas where he can develop within the scheme of a game plan for sure.
Yeah. By the way, Sean McVay, I don't know if you saw this, but he hired a game strategist to help him out, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. McDaniel's a disaster in his game strategy. He has very little awareness of what's going on, and hell, he can't even get a play in on time. And so McVay obviously understands he has shortcomings. Do we know if McDaniel has something like that? Maybe he didn't tell anybody he hired one. Maybe they do have one. And if they do, by the way, if he's been there with them for the last 2 years, fire him because he sucks. Just like you should fire whoever's in the booth telling you about challenges, because that guy sucks too. So do we know anything about that? Do you know if he actually has a game strategist?
Yeah, haven't followed up on that recently. I do know that there was a pretty good staffer who handled all this stuff that was previously with the Dolphins, and then sort of in the whole chaos of Mike McDaniel just got hired and just a lot going on. I think this staffer just had to move on elsewhere. He wasn't hearing from Mike McDaniel, and then just went ahead and found a job elsewhere in the NFL. And then maybe that's something that Mike is regretting at this point, just not having such a guy that is very much inclined in that aspect of game strategy and specifically the challenges. So I haven't followed up recently on what has been done. So that might be something worth looking into. So especially by the time we get into the season. So yeah, I'm going to be looking into that answer at some point. But yeah, I haven't followed up recently, but I do know he had a pretty good one that he could have retained, and then sort of in trying to formulate the coaching staff, prioritizing that, that kind of was on the back burner. And then someone just had to take a job elsewhere, just not really understanding, not really being certain of where his job lied. So, but it's definitely something to follow up on for sure.
Did you hear about any free agents at the Combine that they might be interested in?
Yeah, certainly. And one name that stood out to me, who's not even right now currently a free agent, but we're going to be hearing about a bunch of whether it's cuts or guys available via trade. I had the name Harrison Smith floated around to me, veteran safety. I mean, he's in his mid-30s now, but think about it.
The Notre Dame kid, yeah.
Yeah. Minnesota Vikings, multi-time Pro Bowler. Maybe he's trying to work his way to the Dolphins. I did mention him in a recent piece I put out, Sun Sentinel, things we learned at the Combine. So it's interesting to hear that the Dolphins obviously have Deshaun Elliott and Brandon Jones as free agents at safety. And Harrison Smith is currently under contract, but it could be a post-June 1 cut for the Vikings, or maybe a potential trade is sought. Just somehow he might be wanting to wrap up his career late in that career in Miami with a team that's trying to contend and could possibly look into the safety position.
All right. Are you expecting the Tua deal to get done before the draft? It ain't going to happen before free agents.
Right. That's kind of a tight window before free agency. I mean, right now there is no timeline on it, so it's hard to say whether it'll get done before the draft. I don't think that would necessarily be so much of a deadline that the team feels like, okay, that's somewhere where we want to get it done by. But the draft, it's a month and a half from now, a little bit more than that. So that's plenty of time, especially since we know the Dolphins, from Mike McDaniel to Chris Greer, there is a lot of eagerness to get it done, a lot of desire to get to his long-term deal in place. So, I mean, I could see that as a timeline. I'm not sure if everyone involved would necessarily have that as sort of an ideal window, but that would work for sure.
The Christian Wilkins divorce will obviously produce a compensatory pick.
Right.
But let's say you sign a Patrick Queen. I don't know exactly how the whole formula goes, but if you sign a Patrick Queen and lose a Christian Wilkins, you're really not going to end up getting that third rounder for Christian Wilkins. I don't know how it does. I don't even know if you end up getting something, it washes it out, or maybe it becomes a fifth or sixth rounder or seventh rounder. I'm not exactly sure. I've never been able to figure out that stupid formula for that shit.
Well, I'd have to research it more.
Yeah.
I know the 49ers always get all these compensatory picks, and talent goes out but also comes in. So there's got to be.
They don't buy a lot of free agents.
Yeah, I guess so.
They don't buy. In fact, what they end up doing is trading for them. Notice they traded for the running back. It wasn't a free agent. They traded for him.
Right. They traded for Christian McCaffrey.
They traded
trade deadlines ago.
They traded for the pass rusher this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really, most of their guys are homegrown.
They draft well outside of Trey Lance, but they.
Right. I mean, nobody's going to be perfect, bro. You're going to screw up. You're going to make mistakes, and so be it. But they had hit on so many that it's more about them losing and then just gaining. Whereas that takes several years to get into that cycle. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
There's coaches and executives that have moved on elsewhere. You know, the Rand Carthons and the Robert Salas and Mike McDaniel. So, yeah, I mean, they've produced head coaches elsewhere from their coordinator positions. Raheem Morris, who am I thinking of?
Miami is now starting to get in that,
in
that rotation. Although the last 2 years, because they traded some of their picks instead of picking players, that's going to set them back a little bit on the compensatory side. But if you're able to hit on your picks and you have your allotment of picks every year, then you're going to end up with those kind of compensatory picks, and they're hitting on picks. So that's something that these guys do that, they weren't doing in the past, but it's just a cycle that takes a certain amount of years. And that's why it's been happening to them. But they also don't spend a lot in free agency. That's right.
And the Dolphins have a void in this draft in the middle rounds. They don't have a third round pick. They don't have a fourth round pick. So after that, they have their first, they have their second. After that, there's a big gap before that fifth round pick. They have a couple sixths and then the seventh. So, and there's a lot of prospects in that middle part of the draft that could be end of day 2, start of day 3 of that Saturday picks that I think could really benefit the Dolphins that kind of got a look at over there at the Combine. So I feel like a lot of guys that I'm like, oh, he'd be great for the Dolphins. And then you figure, well, but I wouldn't really use that second round pick. There's someone else I'd rather have. But then you have a big gap 3rd and 4th. So it would be nice if the Dolphins get at least 1 or 2 picks in that range, whether it's by trading down, whether it's by compensatory selections, just so that they have some presence in that middle portion of the draft.
No, I'm with you there. All right, what do you got going on in the Sentinel so folks can check you out?
Yeah, a lot of feedback coming off the Combine. I just posted yesterday the things we learned coming off the Combine, prospects that had their stock go up at the Combine that the Dolphins could be interested in. And then throughout this week, we'll be leading into free agency. Myself and Perk will both be tag teaming to just preview free agency, different positions, and then get you set up for the big week that is next week.
All right, follow him on Twitter at David Furones _ and catch him twice a week here doing his thing with the Welt Rheaume Miami Dolphins report. David, as always, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you immensely.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welt Rheaume, bankruptcy, homeowner property damage, condo damage, criminal defense, business owner claims, commercial litigation. Call my guys, Jeff Welt and Daniel Rheaume. I'm telling you, save the number, even if you don't need it now. Maybe something happened to you and you're not sure if you have a case. Like I told you, the consultation is completely free. Pick up the phone and call or visit them in Hollywood. 954-966-4646. That's 954-966-4646.